when you're selling a policy to somebody,
Sure.
there are a few hoops I would presume you jump through. You're not just saying, okay, you're covered, go for it.
That's correct. Yeah.
And what kind of things do you expect from the
Insured.
policyholder?
Yeah. So when you think about credit risk, right, everybody underwrites credit risk with information. Okay. Most companies, depending on the sophistication of the company and their credit department, they might use credit applications to underwrite credit risk. They get a couple of bank reference, a couple of trade references. They call them up. These people say, hey, these people always pay me great. They call the bank. The bank says, yeah, they have an account here. That's all I can give you, which I still scratch my head. I had a bank account when I was 16. It doesn't mean I have the ability to, because the bank doesn't tell how much money's in there or what kind of a line of credit they have unless they give them permission to. And then they give them credit. More sophisticated companies might pull a D&B report or an Experian report, and maybe a really large credit shop that, a very large company might actually request for financials from their customers before they extend credit. So we underwrite credit risk the same way. And we have a proprietary database of 85 million companies globally.
Okay.
It's massive. It's crazy. So when you think about all of the data points that go into our database, so for instance, we're D&B's largest customer. So anything you would ever get on a D&B report goes into our database.
And let's back
So I
up.
can call you
That's a Dunn's number, right?
Yep,
Dun and Bradstreet. For those who don't know, you can create an account online. They'll go through a verification process with you, get your EIN and all your documents. And that's helpful for getting a policy with several different business-to-business services, including probably this one.
Yeah. So like, for instance, if somebody's subscribing to D&B, if they have us, they don't necessarily need to pay for that D&B subscription anymore.
Right.
So like with our database, we're going to have everything that might be in D&B. We have other types of services where we tap into financial institutions that provide data to us, such as a company's corporate credit card debt and their utilization levels. We have
So you become a resource.
Well, when you think,
for me, am I setting up credit? You can teach me, and you also have information.
or you can just use us as your credit shop. Because really, when you look at what we do,
That's pretty good.
That's cheaper than an employee $10,000 minimum policy.
well,
Anyway.
and we show up with our checkbook. It's
Wow.
We process over 20,000 credit limit requests on a daily basis. So we are looking at a lot of credit.
Yeah.
We have information teams that call and reach out for financials. I personally call and reach out for financials for many of my clients.
Wow.
Who have very large requests for customers they're wanting to give credit to. So once we get this information, it goes into our database. We have sector-specific credit analysts that analyze these financials, because a company that might be a metals company is going to have a different looking balance sheet than maybe a company that's in the food space, right? And they all have different
ratios,
ratios. They have
Yeah.
different cash flow needs. And so we have sector specific analysts that analyze the financials and the data. And then we have a grading scale on our database, very much like you or I have a credit score. We call them debtors in our database have a grading scale. So they have a risk grade of either 1 all the way up to 10. 10 is somebody that's insolvent, 1 is somebody that's not. So our clients leverage us, leverage our information, leverage our expertise to underwrite a lot of their credit risk for them.
Wow. So an example, and I'm just going to play this down a little bit, but I've got a potential new customer. We're going to be doing a big project for them. I'm really excited about it, but I also don't really have much background on them.
Sure.
I would then reach out to you as my insurance broker agent.
Sure.
And I would say, hey, really excited about this opportunity, but I just want to make sure that they're a good company to do business with.
Sure.
And then we could go look them up together and see, oh, wow, they're closer to that 9 or 10. They're kind of insolvent. Maybe don't use them.
Yeah.
Versus, oh, no, yeah, that's a great company to work with.
Absolutely.
And then that would also give me coverage on the receivables.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
So a lot of my clients utilize me before they ever even sign a contract for a new customer or deliver products or a new job or whatever it may be. A lot of times some of my clients will engage me when they're still in the sales process and say, hey, can you look these guys up? Do you think, we're thinking we might be able to sell them a couple $100,000 worth of product. could you cover that? And I can very quickly go into my database and say, yeah, these guys would be covered. Or
And if not, you can help with the processes that we can figure it out.
yeah, well, yeah. I mean, generally when we can't cover a buyer, I call them buyers or debtors. They're the people in our database that our insureds, need coverage on. There's one or two reasons. Either it's negative information or it's lack of information, right?
Yeah, it's the lack of part
Yeah.
that I was thinking of.
Right. So lack of information is something that we can generally overcome with things like a credit app, or depending on the size of the exposure. I mean, if it's a $500,000 exposure, we might want to see some financial information on the company, things of that nature. But generally speaking, smaller type stuff, a credit app with a couple of trade references that say, hey, these people look pretty good, and they generally pay their bills on time. A lot of times just that or pay history would give us the ability to write some coverage on something.